Welcome back. Welcome back. Today, I'm excited to dive into capacity through the lens of the Akashic Records with you. So, to kind of kick things off, I want to share a little bit of the context of why it is we're diving into this. So, first and foremost, if you haven't listened to the June Akashic Forecast episode, highly recommend. This is a very important month for a number of different reasons. And, I've been sitting with my mentorship clients who have been like, hey, I heard this was supposed to be an easy month when it's the opposite. Hey, I've heard there's supposed to be all these blessings this month. Hey, you know what I'm saying? And in some ways, I also felt the same. If you're out there listening to a lot of pop astrology is like, oh yeah, June is amazing. June is awesome. But for most of us, wading through this month hasn't been easy. However, our Akashic theme is to empower yourself, right? So like this month is all about empowering ourselves. And empowering ourselves is not a simple process. Okay, if we could just boom, empower ourselves, that would be great, but that's not the case. So many of the people that I work with in my mentorship containers are people who have been wading through the same things for multiple lifetimes and are now stepping into this lifetime to really start turning things around, meaning that they are really being called to step into a place of empowerment. And, that's not an easy process. It takes time. Sometimes it takes multiple lifetimes. So when we think of this idea of like, ooh, empowering ourselves, like there can absolutely be aspects to it that are fun and light and easy. But at the same time, it usually requires us to confront aspects of ourselves that perhaps we would rather not look at, or to go down into the depths and kind of like stew around and pain and wounding and childhood stuff and all kinds of things. Yet when we do that work, then we empower ourselves. One of the big topics that has really been coming up this year is capacity. And the reason that we are talking about capacity today is because this is such an enormous tool for you to begin empowering yourself in a different way. And I think it's going to be interesting for you to learn about, because you're going to realize you're going to start seeing your life very differently after this episode. You're going to realize, like, oh my gosh, okay, I am low on capacity. Okay, I'm good on capacity. I'm like, you're going to start seeing things differently. And, when at the end of 2025, this word kind of started popping up. If you're involved in the self improvement, world, spiritual world, even definitely the entrepreneurial world, then you've probably heard this word coming forward. And, just like somatics started making its way out into the mainstream a couple of years ago, now too is capacity, because it is meant to be here, meant to be a tool for us to empower ourselves to live differently. And so, I have honestly been sitting with capacity all year long in a number of different ways. For a little while, it was just like, okay, whatever, capacity, like I wasn't taking it too seriously. And then I read an essay about capacity in regards to a person's business. And I was like, what? Okay, this is different. This is helping me, again, see this differently, which was so helpful. And that was earlier this year. And I've just kind of been sitting with it. And the Akasha has been bringing it up here and there, kind of just, making a little bit of reference to it. But they really went in on it in the June Akashic forecast. So again, check that episode out if you haven't. So I wanted to sit down with the Akashic Records because while I understand capacity from my very human self, and certainly in relation to my own life and understand why it's so important in my own life, I wanted to understand it through the eyes of the Akashic Records to really kind of see what they had to share with us about it and understand a bit more about why it is coming to the forefront in such a big way. Because I know that when anything starts showing up in my world like multiple times, it's because, there's something there. There's something to pay attention to. And ultimately, there's something in that for me. But there is something in this for all of us. You don't have to be a business owner. You don't have to be anything. Being a human and understanding capacity, again, is going to change your perspective change the way that you start moving through your everyday. And I'm excited to dive into today's topic with you and share what came through the Akashic Record. So before we get started, if you are looking for guidance, if you need Akashic Record assistance in your life, perhaps you're feeling stuck, perhaps you're not knowing what's going on, perhaps you're needing to reconnect with your own internal wisdom, I am accepting Akashic readings right now. My books are open. I have availability on Wednesdays and Fridays, and I would love to sit with you with the Akashic Records. If you are a brand new client of mine, I send you a PDF with all kinds of information to really help you prepare for your first session. But what is so incredible about the Akashic Records is that people who are drawn to the Akasha, their lives are getting ready to change. So if you have been feeling the nudge, if you are ready to redirect, if you are ready to transform something, come sit in session with me. Bring your challenges, bring your desires, and let's shift together. Okay. All right. So let's dive into capacity. I actually shared, I think, in one of my recent podcasts that I wanted to do a whole episode about this. It was just so interesting because that was an episode from May. And then it came up in the June Akashic forecast. And I was just like, oh, perfect. Great. Good. Okay. So let's talk about what capacity is. Okay. That way we can kind of all start out in the same place. So first and foremost, capacity is not about productivity. And, I really learned about capacity again through the lens of the working entrepreneurial world first. And so there was a lot of tie to productivity and being able to be successful in this very sort of capitalistic way. All right. Now that can absolutely be a part of capacity, but it's not what capacity is. Okay. Capacity is ultimately about energy and about energetic capacity. The Akasha said capacity is something that is limited. It's all about energy and the energetic space that you have within you at any given time. So this entire conversation is really going to center around this one question. How much energy do you have available to hold in your life right now? Okay. Now, the analogy that the Akasha offered up in this reading from the very beginning was this analogy of the cup, right? And it's fascinating because, they said when this energetic space is filled up, it's almost as if a cup is totally full. The water cannot be contained. It runs over, right? When there is capacity, there is room for that water. And they said, think of your body as this container, as this vessel, right? When you have capacity in your life, when you have that energetic space, you can receive, you can create, you can process, you can replenish yourself. And when you don't, right, all of that water spills over. It has nowhere to go. It shows up in bad moods, in, chopping someone's head off, in getting burnt out, in falling apart, in all kinds of things, right? Because the nervous system becomes overwhelmed and life feels impossible. And again, it doesn't matter who you are, you have absolutely felt that in your life at one time or another. I know for me, it's just been really interesting kind of feeling into this whole concept of capacity and realizing so much, which I'll get into in just a little bit. And also why it's playing such a big role right now, right? So what happens when capacity runs out, right? And the Akasha said, when your capacity is overwhelmed, when there is no more space, your system shuts down. It stops computing. It stops knowing how to work the way it was properly meant to work. Okay. And this is not a mindset thing. You can't mindset your way out of this. You can't tap your way out of this. You can't, all of our cool little exercises that we utilize, this is not, this isn't laziness. It's not a motivation problem. It's a capacity problem. It's an energy problem. It's literally that your system cannot continue processing. And, you think of you think of a computer, right? A computer that needs to be updated at times. It needs to be turned off. It needs to be reset like our bodies do. And if it doesn't, then it starts to bug out and things stop working. And you know what I'm saying? You hear that like, oh gosh, just reset your phone or your computer, right? Why does capacity matter so much right now? It's huge. It's absolutely huge. The Akasha said, this is a collective issue because so many are running on low capacity these days. Capacity is the key to understanding where you are at energetically. And of course, this relates directly to your nervous system, to the amount of fear flowing through your body. And we're going to get into that in just a minute more. Okay. So think about what's happening in the world right now. We have a lot of collective uncertainty. You know, there's like information coming at us from everywhere constantly. Global events, we've got wars, we've got famines, we've got horrific things, you know, financial stress. You know, social media is honestly becoming like one of these places that's I'm wanting to be there less and less. I actually just read online the other day that there are now more bots on social media than there are people. And that's a whole different discussion. But point just being is that social media, man, when it first came into fruition, like these were like the early days of my marketing career when people were like, social media, it's not here. Like, you know, Facebook, these are not important things. It's not going to stick around. And I was like, no, it really is. But the level of communication and connection that you could have with other people was phenomenal. It was so incredible. You know, I was a full-time student in journalism school. I was paying my own way through. So I also had a job. I did not have the ability to attend all of the events and networking things that the students did. And yet, because I had a very active Twitter presence, I was able to land 2 internships and get connected with people who became my first clients when I actually launched my own marketing business in the future, all because of social media. Those days are gone. Not that those things never happen anymore, but I'm just saying social media is very different these days than it used to be. And that's something important for us to understand. You know, our nervous systems are overloaded. And this is showing up in a number of different ways. You know, the Akasha really, like the way that they showed this to me, it's like, first of all, you have things that are going on in your own life on your own personal terms. And then, of course, all these things happening in the world. And all of it is overwhelming you to such an immense place because we are not meant to be operating at the level that we have been operating. Okay. We have been slaves to our jobs, slaves to our systems, slaves to living this fast paced, fast food, hacking life. And it doesn't work because that's not what we were meant to do. So let's kind of take it back a little bit and really look at capacity through the lens of energetics, right? So as you know, hopefully you know, everything is energy, right? Everything. And, you know, the Akasha just reiterated, everything is either rooted in love or in fear, right? So capacity is directly tied to which energy that we are operating from, okay? And that is love or that is fear. So when we are operating from love, it's as if we have the capacity for all things. When we are operating from fear, we have no capacity. We are overwhelmed. So let's break this down a little bit more. The Akasha said in regards to love, creating capacity, when you are living from a place of love, you have endless capacity. For love makes you feel safe. It allows you to be adventurous. And they said, think of little children before they have been sullied by the world. They are endless, endless energy, endless curiosity, endless questions, right? That is because love expands. Love creates space. Love increases our capacity. And everything is either rooted in love or fear. And so any emotion you could think of, any situation you could think of, any sort of message you could think of, everything is either rooted in love or fear. And our body knows the difference and it reacts accordingly, right? So fear shrinks capacity. It is the opposite dynamic, of course. The Akasha said, when a person is living in fear, rooted in fear, when that is at the base of their being in this lifetime, their capacity diminishes greatly. They lean back into themselves. They curl back into themselves. And I was literally seeing, this image of like this person just like curling back, like into the corner of their space in their room, right? Like hunched over, just like in a position of protection, ultimately, right? And they said they do not feel safe to ask questions, to go to new places, to be around new people. So fear doesn't just create suffering, right? Fear consumes our capacity to live life, to be alive, to feel alive, right? And again, just kind of relating back to what we're navigating through, right? Because our world is constantly trying to make us smaller. And this is something that comes up through my work in all kinds of ways. Literally from the very moment that you were born on this planet, you have been told that who you are and what you do and how you sound and how you look and what everything you say, like it is wrong. That is what you have been told because our world, the way in which our world operates is through control and manipulation. And therefore it wants you smaller. The Akasha said, the world will always seek to make you smaller. That is why it is so important for you to have a deep and connected, dedicated relationship with yourself. For how can you do all the things that you dream of in this world if you do not have capacity? So many people focus on achievement in this life. And of course, here in the Western world, especially in the United States, capitalism is enormous. It's ripe. It's huge. It's in all things. And I grew up in a family of entrepreneurs. I am an entrepreneur myself, and so there's some of that I really love, right? But like I remember years back, 10 years, definitely 10. Right, it was right around 10 years. There was this guy. He was very famous, and his name is going to come to me in a minute. But he was all Gary Vaynerchuk, all about the hustle culture, hustle, hustle, hustle. And I remember listening to his messages. And I mean, this was when like I was in the heydays of my marketing. I was a Snapchat influencer. I was going to conferences. I was doing all kinds of cool stuff. And I remember hearing this message and I was just like, every bit of my body was like, no. I mean, look, I grew up in a family of entrepreneurs, work hard. Yeah, that's normal to me. But hustle? No. This guy was like preaching like, working day, night, eat, like all the time. And I was just like, this is going to make you sick. It's going to make you depressed. It's going to ruin your relationships. Like, and he got divorced and he got sick and he got, you know what I'm saying? Like, no. Most people are focused on achieving in life. And look, I'm an ambitious person. There's nothing wrong with that. But we have to understand what's rooted in that achievement. Why do we want to achieve? Do we want to prove something to someone else? Do we like need to prove something to ourselves? Or do we like want freedom and want to travel and want to make a difference? Or, you know what I'm saying? Like one is rooted in fear, one is rooted in love. And again, it's important for us to understand. But few people understand and focus on building capacity in their lives to sustain achievement, to create true achievement in their life. Again, this like hustle culture was like, you can strong arm your way into success, but at the risk of what? The consequences being what, right? I am someone who literally developed autoimmune issues because I worked so hard and I stressed myself out so much that I had things come to the surface in the midst of an extremely stressful time in my life in connection with my business. I know what we give up when we don't take care of ourselves, right? So let's achieve, let's create huge things. That's not, we don't have to choose one or the other, but without capacity in our life, we are going to have to give something up in return. But when we're working with capacity, we won't have to. And this doesn't have to be a business for you. This can be like taking care of your family. This can be, like anything that you want to do in your life, right? So some of the signs that you are running low on capacity, and this comes directly from the Akasha. You are overwhelmed, you feel exhausted, you feel burnt out, you feel as if you are not alive inside. Perhaps you feel depressed. Perhaps you are struggling with, they said, when you are feeling like, I can't, like some of these quotes that you might say, I can't take anymore. I can't do anymore. I just want to go to bed. I am so overwhelmed. I am so exhausted. If these are some of the things that you've caught yourself saying out loud or perhaps even thinking, then it's time to check in with your capacity and to check in with where you're at in relation to capacity, right? But remember that if you catch yourself in these places, don't beat yourself up. That's usually the first place that we go. I have mothers whom I work with in my mentorship containers. And when their capacity is like gone, when it's overflown, when they have no space left, they beat themselves up. They think, well, I could do this better. I should do this, like they first go into like, well, I'm just lazy, I'm procrastinating. But that's not what it is, okay? When you start finding yourself in these places with low to no capacity, it is a lack of care and concern for yourself that is ultimately taking place. And being kind to yourself about that is so important because we aren't taught to take care of ourselves. We aren't taught to prioritize ourselves. We aren't taught to listen to our bodies. We aren't taught to pay attention to our capacity. Like, capacity, what? I've never even really heard about this before. You want me to take this seriously? Yes, I do. Because I want you to be healthy and strong and for you to use your voice and for you to make the difference and do the things that you came here to do and to make. The world needs you, right? You have to care for yourself deeply, especially in these times. And again, one of the reasons that this whole like idea of capacity is coming forward in such a huge way is because we are depleting ourselves, and we have been depleting ourselves for decades. This is not new. It's not new, but we are awakening. Our consciousness is rising on this planet. And in that, we are realizing like, oh, my body doesn't want to go Mach 5 all the time. I actually don't want to be multitasking. I don't want to be driving my kids all over creation. I don't want to be building a business, taking care of my family, taking care of myself, taking care of my husband. You know what I'm saying? Like, we are realizing we want to live differently. There's so many people online that fantasize about, going out in the middle of wilderness and building a house and living on the land. And I do too. Why do we do that? Why are we doing that? Because we have no capacity in our life because we aren't taking care of ourselves. And that's like, when we think about what the 2026 Akashic forecast theme was, self-responsibility, again, this is a whole discussion around like, okay, we can look at all these things that are happening in our life and in our world, but it ultimately comes back to us and the decisions that we're making, right? So, what to do when you feel like your capacity is low? Um, you know, when when you start thinking like, okay, it's time to take a break, I've got to step away, I need to reset. And again, it's so fascinating that I chose to focus on this topic this week because I actually had two mentorship clients this week who really like were in deep need of a full reset because of things that are going on in their life. And they're two completely different clients. They've got two completely different types of things that are going on in their life, but both of them need a full reset. Okay. So I want you to think about what restores or what drains you in your life. And then I want you to ask yourself, like, what restores me? Okay. Because when we start thinking about how to deal with our low capacity, first of all, we want to understand what is it that is, what are we like, what is taking our energy? What is siphoning out our energy? Where are we giving it away to? I should really say, because again, it's about us. It's the decisions that we're making. Are we scrolling on our phone endlessly? Are we getting sucked up in TV that really isn't serving us, but helps us to kind of numb out from what's happening in the world? Are we filling our plate with endless to-dos? Are we allowing our kids to run our lives? Are we, you know what I'm saying? Like, you've got to first identify what it is that drains you and is draining you. And if you aren't sure how to do this, one of the ways that you could start doing this is setting an alarm on your phone, like multiple alarms throughout the day, maybe every 2, 3 hours, and just kind of checking in like, okay, how am I feeling right now? How much energetic capacity do I have? And if you're feeling drained, okay, maybe what's this connected to? Why do I think this is? The week before last, that Monday that kind of kicked things off, I was awake until 4 a.m. that night. And my partner's alarm went off at 5 because he goes to the gym. And so I basically, and I can kind of fall back asleep, but it's not ever good sleep. So I got kind of maybe like an hour of sleep. I was able to, drink enough caffeine and do those sorts of things to get myself through that day. But as I moved through the week, I realized that I was really struggling to be clear. I was really struggling to get things done. I was really like all of this, and I was beating myself up in the process. And then I realized, like, because I actually had a second poor night of sleep several nights later. And that next morning, I was sitting in my morning time in prayer, and I was, again, so upset with myself. And I was like, okay, what is going on? And I hadn't taken the time to ask myself that. And it was like, oh my gosh, like, you kicked off this week with like basically an hour of sleep. So your sleep has been in deficit as you have been moving through the week. And then, of course, last night just kicked it up a whole different notch, right? Now, that was helpful for me to be able to kind of transition how I was feeling about myself and the ways in which I was beating myself up into being like, okay, I need to be taking better care of myself. Because the first night where I was up till 4 a.m., I read an entire book that night. I got sucked in, and I just, it's like teenager all over again. Like, yes, I could totally stay awake all night. No problem. And then the second night, I was on social media. I was like scrolling way too late. And then so like, yeah, I was up way later than I usually am. I wasn't taking care of myself. Okay. And so it was helpful for me to identify this, because it was like, all right, this is what's happening. This is what I need to do moving forward, right? I need to turn that around. So the second part of this, of course, is asking yourself, like, what restores you? What are the things in life that give you energy, that make you feel good, that make you feel vibrant and alive? So some of the things that the Akasha mentioned directly, they said painting, movement, nature, time with loved ones, self-care, rest. And they said being amongst loved ones who make your heart feel whole. The thing is that we don't want to just understand the why. We also want to understand the solution to it. And the solution is going to be different depending upon who you are right now. I can tell you that one of the things that has really increased my capacity, my energetic capacity lately, is I've been laying out on my deck, not for long, for like an hour each weekend, not a big deal. But I got to tell you, it has been giving me so much life. Like, I get like a nice burst of the sun. My skin's a little bit darker, And it's just like, I go out there with my book. I used to do this when I was a teenager, and I loved it because it was like my quiet time, my space. Like nobody could bother me. My siblings weren't around. You know what I'm saying? Like it was just on a free alone time, and I loved it. And it's just, I mean, it's like the simplest thing, and I've so been enjoying it. So again, like what are those things that help you? And they definitely suggested, once you kind of take like a capacity overview, that you consider doing a detox in your life. Because if you are really, really low on capacity right now in your life, it's time for a detox. It's time to do something big to start shifting that energy for you. So they said, take a break from your phone, disconnect your social media channels, right? Ignore the news. And it was so cute because when they said that, they're like, yeah, we're giving you permission to ignore the news. Like, do that. Please take care of yourself. Disconnect from the ways in which energy is being siphoned out of you. Okay. And that is so important. And it, one of the things to think about is that like this could be people, this could be activities, this could be, you know what I'm saying? You've got to get clear on what those things are for you. Because ultimately, learning how to pay attention to capacity is all about energetic management, which is so huge right now. It's bigger than it's ever been. And again, that's why capacity is coming to the forefront, because we need to be having this conversation on a more consistent basis so that we can take better care of ourselves. Like myself included, but I see this in my clients is like, we thought we could, we thought we could do all the things and still be okay. And yeah, it's not possible. The world was a lot quieter. The things were hidden a lot more. Just 10 years ago, we were able to do more because we were not as conscious. We were not as awakened. Things are shifting. And as we become more aware of what's taking place, we hold less because, we hold less of the things that don't matter, is what I should say. And that is such an important part of the puzzle. Our feeling low in capacity isn't because we're doing too much of the things that we love and that bring us joy and that bring us energy. It's the opposite. All right. Because again, remember, everything's grounded in love or fear. And so we've got to start looking at those things. Ultimately, the Akasha wants us to begin learning how to notice the signs before we get to empty, before we're, biting our partner's head off, or we're yelling at the kids, or we're, unable to do the project at work, or unable to create, we're meant to start paying attention more and more and more in these times. Don't wait until you're ready to burn down your life before you start listening to your body and paying attention to what's happening. So let's talk about life when you have capacity, because it's exciting. It's really exciting. And in fact, everything that you want to experience is possible and capable when you have capacity, when you have space to create in your life, when you have space to find solutions. Like it's just phenomenal what happens. And again, this goes back to energy, right? Everything's founded in love or fear. And the reason why love is so powerful is it's because we feel safe. You have to understand that when you have no capacity, it's because you're scared to death of something. You're overwhelmed by something, and your prefrontal cortex shuts down, and you literally cannot create from that space. You can't think of solutions. Your world narrows, and it gets really, really hard to do very simple things like make an appointment, go grocery shopping. It's wild what happens because our system shuts down, because it's signaling to us, hey, I need exercise. I need fun. I need whatever it is that you need. I need your attention. I need a reset. And when we push ourselves, that's when we get into full on burnout that takes us months to recover from. That's when we get physically ill, because all of that energetic builds up and comes out into the physical. That's when we create real problems. Okay. So when you have capacity, all right, and the Akasha said, this is when you are able to create, to manifest, to bring things in, to assist others, to make the world a better place. And they said, there's literally nothing you can't do when you have the capacity to do it. Again, remember, this is about energetic management. And going back to the cup analogy, like there's only so much space in a cup. And when you fill the cup up, there's no place for that water to go, but it falls all over the sides. It makes a mess. It causes issues, right? You don't want to get into that place. You want to be constantly restoring yourself so that your cup has space, so that you're able to bring things in. You're able to call in the life that you want. You're able to do the work that you need to do to make it happen. You're able to have the space to see what you need to do, right? Capacity and focusing on capacity right now is revolutionary. And I can't emphasize this enough, and the Akasha cannot emphasize this enough. They said if you were to have capacity, you would have the space to see things more clearly. You would have the ability to speak up. You would have the capacity to assist others to come together. You have to understand that capacity isn't just like a personal thing, right? Because we are all one. We are all connected. We are all in this together. And so when you focus on ensuring that your capacity is, you have space, that it's not empty, it doesn't just change your life. It changes the lives of people around you. It changes communities. It changes cultures. It changes the ways in which we navigate the world. And again, it's revolutionary simply because, like, when you think about what's taking place on the planet right now, we are being inundated with distraction, with war, with messaging, with ideas about who we are and what we're capable of and what we want, right? We're being sold really cheap surface level solutions. And because the majority of us are running on empty when it comes to our capacity, we're just like grasping at straws, trying to get through. But if we are operating from a place of capacity, we have capacity in our life, we're going to see through all that BS. We're going to be able to make decisions more clearly. We're going to feel more empowered. We're going to have a foundation to stand upon. We're going to be able to affect and assist the world around us in the way that we want to right now. And that's why this is so huge. And that's why capacity is revolutionary, because I guarantee you, with every part of me, the people behind the scenes, the people who are actually running this world, do not want you to have capacity. They do not want you listening to your body. They do not want you being able to receive clear messaging. They don't want you to create what you truly want to. They want to keep you controlled. They want to keep you manipulated, going round and round the hamster wheel that, they own. Okay. And that's why it's so huge here. So the Akasha, kind of wrapping up, they said, remember, you are human. You are only able to hold so much at any given time. It's important to know that, to honor that, to make decisions according to that, and to not beat yourself up about it. If you can't attend the party, if you can't do the course, if you can't be part of the thing, don't waste your time feeling bad about it. Take care of yourself, right? Nikasha said, be kind to yourself about it, right? Because it is your responsibility to create capacity for yourself, to notice when it's drained and to do something about it. Your responsibility, your life, your world, make it a priority. We have to get into a place where we're able to see, like, oh my gosh, I'm operating from a place of emptiness. My capacity is shot. It's gone. I need a reset. Maybe I can get away for a day. Maybe I can, take off for the afternoon. Maybe I can go for a hike. Maybe I can, whatever it is that is going to restore you. But we have to start paying attention to this. because ultimately, this is such a huge part of being able to feel empowered in these times. I don't know about you, but that week when I was operating on low sleep, I did not like myself. I didn't like looking at the mirror in myself. I didn't feel like I was doing good things in my life. I didn't. And what is that? What is that? I have responsibility to take care of myself. You have responsibility to take care of yourself. And when we can start navigating these times, remembering that we only have so much, and being kind to ourselves about that, and just taking care of ourselves, everything is going to shift and we are going to feel so much more empowered. I feel amazing today because yesterday, I got in like good, nourishing food. I had a great workout. I got really good sleep. I did the things I needed to do for myself. So I woke up feeling empowered today. That is what we want. All right. That is what we want. All right. Thank you so much for being here, sharing your time with me again. If you would love to sit with me in the Akasha and bring forward whatever it is that's going on in your life, let's do it. Book a session. I'll leave the link below for you, and I would be honored to do so. Feel free to reach out to me if I can be of assistance to you in any way. Regardless, I am sending you so much love. Take care of yourself. Be kind to yourself. And don't forget, when we invest in ourselves, the world benefits. Until next time.